So getting to the point. So as you guys know, our industry is super in flux right now. There's a lot going on. I know some countries, some states, everybody's kind of on a different page right now. So some people are working, some people have a date, some people don't know what's going on. The one thing that we all have in common though as stylists is the surge of clients that either we have already experienced or are going to experience when we open our doors. So the surge of clients is all the people who we haven't seen for months, who are ready to get their hair done, who are ready to see us and be pampered. And I think as we begin the reopening, I feel like Megix is such a great tool for us. And if you've used it before, I think you would be able to agree that it's really going to help us when we reopen or if you have already reopened. Megix 10 has innovative technology. It's advanced more than any other color line that I've ever worked with and know of. And it's very, very time efficient. So as stylists, we are essentially, we're going to be losing time, right? So there are new sanitation guidelines for cleaning and disinfecting. For some of you, double booking may no longer be an option. We will be having staggered schedules, which means some of the larger salons, only a certain amount of stylists can come in at a time. So we might have to be staggering. And at the end of the day, as stylists, we may be facing some restrictions on how we create revenue. I know I've spoken to a lot of stylists who are unsure if they even want to go back to work right now because, you know, with the staggered schedule, with the no double booking, you know, we're losing so much time behind the chair. How can we still be profitable? And so to me, that's where Megix kind of comes into play, because we don't have to lose money. Yes, we're losing time behind the chair, but we don't have to lose any money. So I'm here to tell you we can go back to work and we can still make money and we can still see all of our clients. The restrictions don't have to affect us that much. So I want to share with you guys a little bit about Megix. So what we're going to do is we'll go over the technology behind the brand, the color chart, the different color families and their background tones, how to mix, how to apply, how to use this color to essentially revolutionize your business. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of Megix. So it is an Italian color line based near Naples. It is family owned, and that's why I say we're lucky to have Maurizio on as well, who is part of the family. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail later on, but I want to just address that, you know, the initial launch with Megix 10 happened in 2011. And some of that technology that they were using at the time just wasn't probably to par of what they were capable of doing. So in 2015, there was a complete relaunch with new technology. No other company is using this technology, and have launched nation or globally this color. And so I want to get into some of, I guess, the concern. So as a stylist, if you've ever been faced with 10-minute color, if you've been approached with 10-minute color, there are certain preconceived notions that we may experience when it comes to 10-minute color. And that's because of older technology. I'm talking 10, 20-year-old technology. And so some of these preconceived notions, if you will, that we experience when we're presented with 10-minute color, right? This is, again, not Megix, but old 10-minute color. Because it's a faster processing time, people assume that it's aggressive. And that's true with other old technology. It's highly ammoniated. It's very alkaline in order to swell that cuticle up really quickly and try and get that color deposited as fast as possible. This is how old 10-minute color worked. Unpredictable results. They had a lot of heavier dye loads, and some people were possibly concerned that maybe you can't get predictable results, okay? Old technology is and was progressive. So what progressive means, as I'm sure you guys know, is say you leave it on for longer than the allotted time, which in this case was 10 minutes. How many of you have heard the horror stories? You leave it on for 15 minutes and it goes black, or your level 7 turns into a level 2. That falls in line with it, it being unpredictable. So this is old technology. This is how we used to deal with 10-minute color, right? Limited in color selection. So what that means is, traditionally, when you're faced with a 10-minute color, when you're presented a 10-minute color, the main reason behind it up until Megix has been maybe for male clients, for gray coverage, kind of quick in between appointments. So you maybe 15 to 20 colors to choose from at most, okay? And limited in use. So traditionally only for gray coverage. And what I'm excited to share with you guys today is the Megix 10 difference, and what makes Megix unique, what makes it different than the older technology, than other 10-minute color lines, is the newer technology, which we're going to get into a little bit more detail later on in the presentation. So with Megix, we have a low ammonia content. So it's not highly alkaline, because we don't need to create so much alkalinity to try to get this color to work, right? Because of the technology, we don't need to do that. It's gentle and it's conditioning on the hair. So there's a complex called Caraveg 18, which I will cover in a couple slides, on how, while we are coloring and while we are processing the hair, we're actually conditioning it, and we're actually helping the hair be more healthy and keeping the integrity of the hair. You get 100% gray coverage with Megix. Yes, in 10 minutes, it is possible to get 100% gray coverage. Later on, I have some photos to show you, because obviously if we were doing an in-person class, you could see a model, and that's just not possible right now. So we've got a lot of photos and pictures, some of it being my work, to show you that this is possible. Megix is not progressive. Let me say that again. Megix is not progressive. So if you happen to have to leave it on for longer than 10 minutes, it's not going to go black. You don't have to worry about it over processing and depositing darker. That just doesn't happen. It is a full color line, and this was the biggest thing that was very exciting for me in the beginning, is that it is a full line. 86 shades to choose from, and it just happens to process in 10 minutes. So you don't have to be limited to only gray coverage clients. If you have redheads and coppers and mahogany and gold and ash and sand, like, it's a full spectrum line for you to use that will save you time, because it processes in 10 minutes. It's great because it's versatile, which means you can use it as a permanent color. You can use it as a demi-like color. You can use it as a toner. There are high lift blondes. There is a lightener. I mean, it is a full line that is really going to help you when we're dealing with all of these clients and trying to get people in. So this is a line that is ideal for every client. And so I'm excited to share with you a little bit more about how it works, because one of the main questions I get asked often is, how does it work in 10 minutes? How does it work in 10 minutes? There's a couple of reasons for that. So one of the most important reasons and factors that helps this color process in 10 minutes is what they call spectrum technology, also known as micropigment technology. So some of you may have heard micropigment technology. You've heard that thrown around in the industry, and I want to explain to you what that means when it comes to Megix 10. So the dyes that are used for the color, okay, the actual color in the tube, they're high quality, small micropigments, okay? They're specially formulated in certain shapes and sizes in order for them to couple and combine more quickly and more effectively, okay? It is a revolutionary technology that just differs from any other 10-minute color. So a great example that I like to use in classes is in describing how the micropigments work. A lot of stylists are visual, so if you could just imagine, if I had 3 bowls of sugar, right, and I have a hot cup of coffee. If I take a cube of sugar and put it in a hot cup of coffee, you will have to stir it and agitate it in order for it to melt into the coffee. If I have granulated sugar, which is regular like sugar packets, and I put it in my hot coffee, I will still have to stir it in order for it to diffuse into the coffee, okay? If I had powdered sugar, I wouldn't have to do much. It would just diffuse into the coffee. So when we're talking about micropigments, the best example would be that it's like the powdered sugar. They're significantly smaller. So because they are smaller, they get into the cortical fibers a lot easier and a lot quicker than the cube sugar, right? And what question I get often when I talk about micropigments is, well, if they're so small, won't they just wash out of the hair? And that's where the coupling and combining comes into play. So once they're in the cortical fibers of the hair, these dyes then bind together and bind into the cortical fibers of the hair and grow larger, which means they do not fade out. So for those of you who have used the color before, you see that it's actually very long lasting, permanent, because the dyes then couple, they get larger, and they actually stay into the hair more effectively. So that is a little description on, what is spectrum technology and how it just differs so much from any other color line. So earlier I was talking about how it's conditioning to the hair, and that's because of a complex called Caraveg 18. And what Caraveg 18 is, a vegetable-based keratin protein complex, okay? It's going to help increase the elasticity in the hair. It's going to help maintain the integrity of the hair. It will add shine and durability and longevity, and also protect from environmental stress factors. So what's cool about this is that it is already in every tube of color. So it's not something that you add in. It's not a additional service. It's formulated in with the base of the hair color. So as you are coloring the hair, as you're lightening and depositing, Caraveg 18 is there conditioning and basically helping the hair maintain its integrity. So for those of you who have used Megix and you see that incredible shine, part of that is due to Caraveg 18. So I want to let you guys know, in a couple minutes we will have an opportunity to do a Q&A session. I don't know if there are questions coming up right now, but I just wanted to put it out there that we will have a few minutes to answer any questions that you guys may have about the color. So this is a photo of the color chart. As you guys can see, 86 shades, lots of different color families to work with. Again, this is going to give you creative control. You don't have to carry multiple lines if you don't want to. Everything you could want to do is here with Megix. So we'll go into a little bit more in depth on these color families, what their background tones are. But I wanted to just give you guys a visual of how beautiful these colors are and what a wide variety of colors that we do offer. So ultimate creative control for colorists. Excuse me. Okay, so this is one of the most important parts when you are looking at possibly bringing on a new color line, is understanding the tonal families, understanding the background tones. And this is a great resource when you bring Megix on to refer back to. And I want to cover each tonal family so that we're all clear on what the background tones of these families are. So we have two different natural series. So there is a natural and an intense natural. As I read through the color chart, you'll notice that there's a lot of families that have a cool version and a warm version, and the neutral is no exception. So typically in the United States, I know we have people watching from all over, but I can only speak intelligently on what happens here. In the US, when a hairstylist sees 0.00 or NN, typically we assume that that is extra pigment, extra gray coverage. That's what you need to use for resistant grays. And that is not the case with Megix. So I want to make this clear, and I hope that you pay attention at this part because it's so important. When you're dealing with the 0.0 versus 0.00, so the natural versus the intense natural, the only difference is that one is cooler and one is warmer. So the 0.00 is a warmer natural. It's got a yellow orange base versus the 0.0 is a cool natural. So when you go and use the 0.00 without understanding that it's a warm background, you might be a little upset because you're expecting an NN or additional gray coverage. And with Megix, you don't need additional pigments because it is a pigmented color line. So 0.0 cool natural, 0.00 warm natural, okay? We also have our ash family, which is the 0.1 series. It has a blue-green background. Later on, I'm going to cover we have enhancers. And what's great about some of these enhancers is you can make your ash more blue or more green or more violet with these enhancers. But as it stands, the ash is a blue-green base, okay? We also have our new color families, which is the double ash, 0.11, additional blue in there. So it's more of a blue-green. Really, really great for controlling warmth. Ash violet, also a new family that was just introduced. 0.12, it is a blue violet. And those colors come in the higher levels. So I believe they start at a level 8 or a 9, blue violet background tone. We have our 0.2 family, which is violet, purple, beautiful. Okay. We also, yes?
The 0.12 starts from level 8.
So it is from level 8. So level 8, 9, and 10, 0.12, which is a blue violet background tone. Moving on to our gold. So as you can see in this chart, like I've put the tonal families, the numbers, and their background tone. So it's very useful. The gold is a yellow-orange background tone, which is the 0.3. And moving on, obviously copper is our orange. Mahogany is a red-violet. We have two different reds. So remember how I was talking about we have a cooler and a warmer in some of these families. Red is also no exception. So there is the red iris, which is a red-violet. So it's going to be slightly cooler because of that violet in there. And the red intense, which is 0.66, is a red-orange. So that's going to give you a little bit more of a vibrant or a warmer red. Moving on to maroon, this is something that over the past couple of years, some people get confused on, again, in the States, right? So typically we assume maroon is like a Bordeaux, a red wine color. And from what I've been told, maroon, what does that exactly translate to? How do you say it in Italian, Maurizio? You're on mute. Oh. Sorry, I think it's really cool when he says.
Yes.
How do you pronounce the maroon in Italian?
It's marroni.
Okay, and that means it's a warm brown, right?
Yes.
That's what it technically translates to. So that's why I love his accents. I like hearing him talk. So maroon is more of a warm brown. So don't get it confused with a red violet or a Bordeaux wine color. It's just a warm brown. And then we have the cooler version of that, which is the cold maroon. And that is actually such a beautiful color because it's a warm chocolate brown, but it doesn't have the red warmth to it. It's more of a golden warm brown. Beautiful. And then the sand family, which is a yellow green. So it's important to, when you bring this color line on, if you choose to use it, when you are going to start formulating for your clients, it's so important, as you guys know, to understand the background tone, because not all ash is created equal. Not all reds are created equal. So to know the background tones will help you when it comes to switching your formulas over. So this is super important. And if you get the color swatch book, you get the color wheel with it, which essentially is the same information that I just presented, but on the color wheel. So you can see all the different color families and where they lie on the color wheel, so that when you go to formulate, super easy for you. Okay, so color chart 101. These are beyond the traditional color families, which were like the neutrals and the reds, we have a fantasy series, we have color enhancers, ultra lift blondes, and a blonding enhancer. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes covering these series and what they mean. So fantasy series is essentially a blended color line in that series. So typically, there's a lot of manufacturers who will do this where they will take 2 different colors or 3 different colors and blend them into one tube so that the hairstylist doesn't have to do that. Okay, so the fantasy series is just that. It is just blended. So there's like a level 7 40, which is a copper natural. There's a 4 double ash. There's a few colors to choose from. Let me see if I can go back to the color chart and show you right here to the right is the fantasy series. So they're just blended colors. They're gorgeous for glazing and toning, and they're just absolutely beautiful. So that is what the fantasy series is. Most people assume this row right here, which is the enhancers, that's the fantasy series, and that's not. So speaking about the enhancers, you guys can obviously see there are 6 or 7 to choose from. I want to cover these enhancers because these are, in my opinion, the most underused color family. Now, the color enhancers are not direct dyes. So you're not going to be using these to create the looks that a direct dye would. For example, Pure Shades is a direct dye. The color enhancers are oxidative. So what that means is they need developer in order for them to work. Now, they're designed to essentially mix with any of the other colors in the color line to enhance. So remember earlier I was saying our ash is a blue-green background. If you want it slightly more blue, you could add a color enhancer blue to your formula to add more of the blue. If you wanted a little bit more gold reflect in your copper, you could add the gold in with your copper formula to help enhance that. So they are designed to mix in with the color families and enhance or neutralize. Now, they can be used on their own as well. And so what I mean by that is you can use them as a filler. So you can mix the blue with the developer and put it directly on the hair. It's not going to give you the same result a direct dye would, but maybe you could use it as a filler or as an anchor before you do another color service. So they do need developer in order for them to work. So when you mix the color enhancer into your formula, you have to account that in your developer as well. Moving on to the Ultra Lift Blondes, you can get up to 4 levels of lift with the Ultra Lift Blondes, okay? When you mix it with double 40, up to 4 levels of lift. Now, as a stylist, I have to say, obviously, depending on the natural level, the texture of the hair, the density of the hair, there's certain people who are great candidates for ultra lift color. So you can get up to 4 levels of lift. There are 6 different high lifts to choose from. So we've got a lot of different tonalities when it comes to the ultra lift blondes to give you a little bit more creative control. And what's cool about the ultra lift blondes and what's extremely, in my opinion, unique about them is they can also be used as a toner or a glaze if you change your developer up. So we'll go into that a little bit more later on. So ultimately up to 4 levels of lift. Now you can get additional lift with the ultra lifts if you use the blonding enhancer. So the blonding enhancer is 0.00. It's essentially just additional alkalinity. So it can give you maybe 1/2 to 1 additional level of lift. And you can mix half of your formula with the blonding enhancer, the other half of your formula with an ultra lift blonde, and get you a little bit more lift. So I hope that makes sense. I want to talk about our developers. This is a major question that comes up often for people who haven't been to a class before or who haven't been exposed to Megix, they say, why is it 12 and 21 and 32? Why not 10, 20, and 30? Well, going back to the original question of how does this work in 10 minutes, in addition to the micropigment technology, what happens is our developers have a little bit more oxygen in each bottle. So typically a 10 volume, for example, is 3%, is referred to as 3% oxygen in that liter. So with Megix, we have 12 volume, so it's 3.6% oxygen. Now, when we understand the role of developer in the coloring process, developer helps lighten the hair, and it also helps develop the dyes. So when you have a little bit more oxygen in your developer, it's going to help in developing those dyes a little bit quicker and lightening the hair slightly quicker because of that extra push. Now, it's not significantly or any more damaging, it's just a little bit extra oxygen. Now, it is super, super important to use the Megix developers. So if you're using the Megix color, obviously use the developer with it to get the actual best results possible. I know hairdressers like to break the rules, but I'm here to tell you, don't do that. Just use the developer. That's what it's designed for. That's what it was created for. But that's what the difference is. It's just an additional little bit of oxygen to help that 10-minute process occur. Okay, and 40 volume is our max. We recommend using 40 volume with the high lifts to give you that extra boost. Excuse me. Okay, so now I want to open it up. I know I saw some notifications for raised hands and possibly some questions. So I'm going to open that up to Maurizio if you have any questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free.
Okay, so the first question is is the color line more warm tone, cool, or ash?
Is the color line more warm, cool, or ash? So I don't know. I mean, we have warm colors, we have cool colors. The base of the color, depending on what you're using, will be warmer or cooler. So if you're using the ash, it's obviously going to be slightly cooler. If you're using the cool natural, it's going to be cooler. If you're using the warm natural, it's going to be warmer. So okay. I don't know if that answers.
Another question is the 0.7 essentially a warm chestnut tone?
Yeah. Okay. Essentially, it's a warm brown, yes.
Okay. Okay, then there is another question, is there a chance to be the color be gluten-free? At the moment, we know that we have the wet protein, but what we should consider is that the wet protein is that is in the color is part of Carabag 18, so it needs to protect the hair and also to give elasticity to the hair. And we know from studies that the gluten molecule is too big to be absorbed through the skin and hair. So basically, it is not absorbed by the body, but just it is absorbed by the hair. And also the quantity is so small that it cannot affect it cannot make any problem to people also that is not tolerant to the gluten. But we also are working to find an ingredient that can replace the wet protein and in the way to remove to the formula in the next future. Okay, then we have another.
Very cool. That's a good question. A lot of people have asked me that, and yeah, it's to your discretion. Obviously, there is wheat protein, but
yes, because the wheat protein is part of the complex. This is the the reason why we have the wet protein. Okay, then.
And you're saying it can't be absorbed into the
no,
body.
because it's too big to be absorbed.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, another question. I'm having trouble with gray coverage on hair, 50% or more gray, natural tones. But any special formulation you can suggest?
Trouble with gray coverage on 50% or more gray hair. Okay, so I wouldn't necessarily suggest a special formulation. What I can suggest is depending on the texture of the hair. So this color line is and has been designed to be a reflective color line, which means that the coverage will be more dimensional. It'll be a little bit more natural and softer versus a more harsh and opaque coverage. So from what I'm assuming, just from talking to people, the trouble that you may be having with the gray coverage is that it's probably not as opaque as you may want it to be. And if that's the issue, then what I would say is you can add a little bit more pigment to developer mixing, and we can talk about that. Reach out to me on Instagram. But typically, when you're dealing with 50% or more, you have to add a natural or a cool natural or a warm natural. And sometimes what happens is, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but sometimes it could be an application issue. So I always recommend obviously taking fine sections, heavy saturation of color. Make sure that you are actually processing it the full 10 minutes and that the color is packed on the hair. I've seen people take really large sections when it comes to gray coverage. So that would be tip number one. And tip number two would be to finesse your formula and add a little bit additional dye to it, which, like I said, we can discuss with your certain client. So I hope that helps.
Okay. Another question, is there a demi developer to use the color as demi line?
Yes, there is a developer that we have, which is the Fix. In the next set of the presentation, we're going to go into mixing and ratio of the colors versus the developers based on the desired result. So if you want a demi-permanent or tone-on-tone, then we'll go into that. But in a nutshell, yes, it can be used as a demi-like, which is awesome.
Another question is, can you intermix the developers?
So you could. I don't see why you would, unless you're maybe missing, say you want a 21 volume and you don't have it. So if you're asking, can you mix a 12 and a 32? I always answer that question like, you can do whatever you want. I mean, we're hairdressers. It's not going to be as stable. So there's no actual way of guaranteeing that you're going to get an actual 21 volume when you mix the 12 and the 32. But most people will do it and they will get the results that they will get. I would say don't mix them, but if you're going to, then just know that your results may slightly vary because you're not going to get a stable 21 or 32.
Okay. Another question is, what percentage of natural bees would you put for 50 gray when you want a color on 6.4?
So I'm assuming they're asking a formula question. So how much natural would I put in if I want a color using the level 6.4, which is a 6 copper? Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
On 50
so,
gray hair, 50%.
On 50% gray
yes.
hair. So I would, first of all, I would use a warm natural for that. So instead of the 0.0, I would use the 0.00. And the reason I would do that is because I want to enhance more warmth. Obviously, you want a copper color to be nice and vibrant. So I would add the 0.00. The question I would then pose is what is the hair texture? Is it fine, medium, or coarse? Typically, you want to put 25% of a natural with your other color. So I would do 25%, probably 6.00, and then the rest of my formula being the level 6 copper. Now, if their hair is fine, I wouldn't add as much of the natural. If their hair is coarse, I would add a little bit more natural. But in general, 25% would probably suffice.
Another question is, if having an issue with the coverage, can you process up for 15 minutes?
Yes, you can. It's not going to get much darker, so I would ask you to look at what is causing what is the situation that's causing the process for it to not process the way you want it to? I mean, listen, I've spoken to lots of hairstylists who say they leave it on for 15 minutes, or they'll even leave it on for 30 minutes because they do a highlight in between, and it's fine. It's not going to get darker. It's not going to deposit darker. But I always say the whole point is to try to get it done in 10 minutes. So what can we do to make sure that you can get the coverage that you want in that 10-minute time? So kind of depending on the situation. But yes, you can leave it on for longer than 10 minutes. It's not going to damage or cause any problems. But it won't necessarily get darker.
Then there is a question that is I image there is a European standard as far as the green clean product moment goes. Yes, we basically follows the European Community regulation that they basically forbid each 6 months some ingredients. So yes, twice in a year we revise, we improve the formula, making it always cleaner and also more green.
I did not know that.
Yes, we have to.
Very cool.
Okay.
Is there any other questions?
Yes, there is. Okay, this is I found root touch-up and utilities at the same time.
Oh, here it is. I found
yes, maybe it's because I'm...
Okay, I'll read. Let's see. I found root touch-up and highlights at the same time.
Yes.
Mute the highlights in the rinsing process. I found root touch-up first, then highlight helps keep the vibrancy of the highlight and overall color. So that is always, it's funny because it always comes up in every class, like, do I color and highlight at the same time? Do I color first and then highlight? Do I put the foils in first and then do the roots? And that is 100% up to your discretion. What you're saying, if the highlights are muted, if you do the root touch-up in between, what I do in that situation, because typically when I do a highlight and a root touch-up, I will put the foils in the hair and then I'll go in between and do the gray coverage. So sometimes what I do in order to not mute those highlights, because you have to think the bleached hair is very, very porous. So sometimes if you're using a darker base, it can wash onto the highlights. If that's what you want, cool. If that's not what you want and you want a more vibrant look, then sometimes what I do is I'll rinse with the foil still in the hair. Trying to protect what is in the foils, getting rid of all of the color that's on the roots. And then once that's done, I'll take the foils out and shampoo everything. Another tip with that is if you do pull your foils and rinse all at the same time, don't emulsify the hair. So literally pull the foils and just rinse without putting your hands in the hair, and that'll get all the color washed out a little bit more evenly, if that helps.
Okay, so is a virgin application the same as traditional? Would you use a different level of peroxide on the first half-inch new growth?
So yes, it will be just the same as traditional. So I would recommend, if you're using, for example, 21 volume on the roots, then use 32 volume on the mids and ends, because of that hot zone. That soft keratinized hair will process differently than the mids and the ends. So yes, I would recommend using a higher developer mids to ends, lower developer at the root.
So another question is, can you use all the plexis that we have now? You could use, but basically what the plexis are doing, it is what our Kerameg 18 is doing. So we already have our plex in the formula.
But you can. It's not going to change your result. I know there's people who absolutely love and swear by Olaplex. So yeah, absolutely. If you want to still use it, go ahead. But the Kerameg 18 is such a conditioning it's just a really great complex that's in the color that makes the hair feel really great. So you might find that you may not need it, which could save you some money. So.
Yeah. Okay, so last question for now is this design just for the roots, or it can be used as a permanent core?
No, so this is a full range color line. So you can use it on the roots, you can use it on the ends, you can use it as a permanent, you can use it as a demi-like. Depending on your mixing and developer choice will kind of guide your formulation. So let's get back to, if there's no more questions, because some of the questions that came up are questions that are going to be addressed in the next half of the presentation. So are there any more questions that you see?
Yes, other two. Okay, what formula would you do to get a rose gold on highlighted hair?
Okay, so I have a really hard time giving out a certain formula because there's so many variables that kind of play a part in how to get a certain color. Now, I know I don't know when the blondes are coming out, but there will be lots of formulas that are going to be coming out through Megix. As far as the rose gold, if you don't mind, I would love to work on that with you through DMs. If you can show me some pictures of what the hair has been lightened to, because all of these things play a part. How light did you get the hair? What is the texture and the porosity of the hair? And what do you think a rose gold is? Because from what I found, and if you're a stylist, you know, people think rose gold is 10 different things. People think chestnut is 10 different things. So I would love to help you formulate with that. If you can send me some pictures and we can have a little dialogue, and then I would definitely help you out.
Okay, you will send to me and I will forward to you.
Perfect.
Another question is, most color lines suggest 20 volumes developer for cover grade. Would we use the 21 developer?
Yes. Yes. So 21 is what's recommended for traditional gray coverage. If the hair is fine, I have found that some people can get coverage using 12, but I always use 21 volume for gray coverage. That's what color is tested with. That's what essentially is the best for pigment development. So 21 volume all the way for gray coverage.
Okay. And last question. I think is a question asking if we can process the Megix 10 with heat sources.
That's a question that comes out often. So good question. I would say no. And the reason being is I would question why would you want to put it under the heat? And what most people would say is because they think that the heat will help the deposit or the heat will help the longevity. And what the heat does is makes the color and the peroxide more unstable. So in any case, I would say you don't need the heat in order to get better coverage or better deposit. So I would say avoid it. It will create an instability and you might get altered results with that additional heat. So I say no go. If you want to, you can, but I would not recommend it because you're not going to get the best results.
Okay. No.
Cool.
Yes.
No more questions?
No more questions.
Okay, so let's move on. Those are some really awesome questions, guys. Thank you for those. And again, I'm always here on Instagram or email or whatever if you have any questions that I can help you out with a certain situation. It's hard for me to say this is the formula or this is what you should do because every situation is so different and I want to advise in the best way possible. So if I get a little background, then it helps me with the formula questions. Okay, so moving on to mixing and timing. So these next few slides are going to look the same. The main difference is going to be this circled part right here, which is the desired result. So if your desired result is a tone on tone or demi-permanent like result, okay, and I say demi-permanent like because it isn't this line is not an acidic line, it is an alkaline line. So if you're trying to get a tone on tone or a demi-permanent like effect, your mixing ratio will be 1 part color to 1.5 parts of the developer. And the developer you're going to use is going to be Fix, which is a 6 volume developer. This is to answer the question, can it be used as a demi? This is what you're going to use to make it like a demi. It is a 6 volume developer. It is a 5 to 8 minute timing. So in this scenario, you would use, for example, the Ultralift Blondes. You could use them as a toner in this way. You could use any of the colors if you're just trying to do a very light glaze. You know, the 6 volume doesn't have the capability to deposit deep into the cortex. So it's going to give you that type of result, right? A very tone on tone or a very sheer demi-permanent like result in 5 to 8 minutes. So again, 6 volume, 1 to 1.5 mixing ratio, okay? If you are wanting a long-lasting demi, and so what a long-lasting demi is going to be with the 12 volume, okay? So what you're used to being a 10 volume, it would be like a 12 volume, a little bit more power to help that color deposit further into the cortex without shifting the base a lot. Okay, so a long-lasting demi-permanent is a 1-to-1 mixing ratio. So 20 grams of color, 20 grams of developer, your 12 volume, and it's going to be a 10-minute processing. So on hair that is not too porous, this is the mixing ratio that I would use to refresh the ends. If the hair is porous or damaged, I would use the Fix 6 volume. But on hair that is relatively healthy, say you have a client who you color a beautiful red copper, okay, and you do her roots with 21 volume and the ends need to be refreshed, I would go in with the 12 volume. And what that's going to do is it's going to deposit a little bit deeper and last a little bit longer for her refresh on her ends, 10-minute processing time. I have some clients that I will use the 12 volume with for a gray blend. This is what you would use if you have male clients and you want to slightly blend in their grays to not get a full deposit. You could use the 12 volume. Super versatile. So that is your mixing and timing for the 12 volume. Now for traditional permanent color and for traditional gray coverage, your mixing ratio is 1-to-1. Again, say 20 grams of color, 20 grams of developer, and you're going to use 21 volume, okay? This is traditional gray coverage. If you want the color to be a traditional permanent color line, it's 21 volume, and yes, it is a 10-minute process. It will process, it will lift and deposit in 10 minutes, keeping the hair feeling amazing because of the CareVeg 18. Now, moving on, if you want additional lift, okay, I'm super blown out. I'm sorry, guys. If you want additional lift, now we say 2 to 3 levels of lift, but that's depending on the situation, okay? Just because I use a 32 volume does not always mean that I'm going to get 3 levels of lift. It is the combination of your developer and the color that you choose to use. However, if you want a little bit more brightness, if you want a little bit more lift, if you want to expose a little bit more warmth in the undertone, then you would mix your desired color with 32 volume. Again, your mixing ratio is 1-to-1. 1-to-1, 20 grams color, 20 grams of developer, 32 volume. Again, a 10-minute processing time. So the lifting and depositing occurs in 10 minutes. So it's pretty, when you see it, it's pretty awesome. So if you're going to use a high lift blonde, ultra lift blonde will get you 3 to 4 levels of lift, and your mixing ratio is 1-to-2, also known as double 40, right? We know that typically when it comes to ultra lift blondes, your mixing ratio is always double 40, and it's no different here. The only difference is that with our ultra lift blondes, it is not a 10-minute processing time, it's 20, which is insane because that's usually something that takes closer to 45 to 55 minutes. You're getting ultra lift blondes done in 20 minutes. 1-to-2 double 40. Sometimes people ask me, can you mix an ultra lift blonde with the 21 volume? Can you mix it with the 32 volume? You can, but if you want that 3 to 4 levels of lift, if you want the maximum lift and deposit, then double 40 is going to be the way to go. Okay, a couple of pro tips. These are just some things that I've learned over the years and what I share in my classes. So if you're working on any, 50% or more gray hair, use 25% of your formula in a natural or intense natural. So client has 50% gray, 75% gray. you're going to need a little bit more, a little bit of the natural in there. Now, we always say Megix covers gray 100% in any color, and it does. If you have somebody who's 75% gray and use a red on her, it will cover. But we have to be mindful of the laws of color. So what is that red going to look like? The hair is not going to be white anymore. It's just going to be very, very red. So when you're dealing with gray hair in the hair, it's just advised to add 0.0 or 0.00. Now, when you're working on anybody, a client that has over 75% gray hair, my recommendation is drop your level half to one level darker than your desired result, which means if you have a client who you do a level 6 natural, okay, but she is 75% gray, what you can do is drop it down to a 5 or mix half and half, a 5 and a 6. It'll get you somewhere like a 5.5. So that additional pigment is going to help in getting that coverage that you're looking for. Okay. This is a pro tip from me. When using any of the red shades, don't use higher than a 32 volume. If you need to lift it more, then use a lightener, or lift first with an ultra lift blonde and then go in with your red shade. When you use a 40 volume with your red formulas, what happens is part of the job of developer is to lighten melanin, and it develops the dyes. Now, when you're using 40 volume, it's not only lightening the melanin of the hair, it can shear out your red formula as well. So when you mix 40 with the red shades, that developer is so strong that it won't make them as vibrant. So I always say 32 volume at most when you're using our reds. We covered this point before. Add up to half of your formula of the 0.00, which was the blonding enhancer, to give you an additional half to one level of lift with the ultra lift blondes. And this is I always laugh because I have to cover it. Always measure your color and developer. Always measure your color and developer. Eyeballing it is not a good idea, especially when you're dealing with a color line that has a revolutionary technology behind it. You guys, don't eyeball it. Because what can happen is if you don't measure properly and say you put a little too much developer, then your undertone is going to be slightly lighter, getting you not the result that you wanted. If you don't put in enough developer and you put in too much color, your result may be darker or muddier than what you're expecting it to be. So measure it out. I don't care if you use a beaker. I don't care if you use a scale. Just don't just eyeball it. Okay? Please measure your color. Okay, so this is the fun part where if we were in a class, we would be doing a model. So these are our models. Excuse me. So some of these photos have the formulas on them. Some of them don't. And these are just hairdressers across the world who have used Megix with phenomenal results. As you can see, this was the warm natural and the ash to create this result here on very gray hair. A high lift 101, which is an ash with double 40 to create this beautiful blonde. I mean, look at this. This is so gorgeous. The 9.12, which is a blue violet, all over with 32 volume to get that hair lightened. Here's some other pictures of just a traditional gray coverage. This was done with 12 volume. So as you can see from this picture, if you're a relatively seasoned stylist, you can see her hair looks pretty fine. And because her hair is fine and it's probably porous, this is why they got this coverage that they did with 12 volume. Okay, a little bit more of the gray coverage. Look at this beautiful copper. I'm assuming they use a gold copper here to get that coverage. All of this processing in 10 minutes, you guys. So here's some more pictures. This last photo is actually from one of the classes that I did. That was done using a 12 volume. So I don't remember the actual formula, but I do believe that it was probably sand and natural. 12 volume got us that coverage in just 10 minutes. And then this, again, more gray coverage. I mean, it's phenomenal, you guys. This is done in 10 minutes. So when you're thinking about this surge of clients that are going to come in and how are you going to service all these people without losing money, and we can't double book anymore, you know, these clients are done. These root touch-up appointments can be done with a blowout in 45 minutes. I mean, say you take 10 minutes to apply, 10 minutes to process, another 15 or 20 minutes for a blowout, and they're in and out. And I'll tell you this from personal experience, you guys, my clients, I mean, I started using this long before COVID, and my clients have loved the convenience of being able to come in during their lunch break, or to be able to come in after work and still get home at a decent time to be able to make dinner for their families. Or you know, corporate clients, moms who can only get a babysitter for an hour or two, coming in and getting their hair completely done in an hour. Um, it's really, really, really beneficial for clients and for us as hairdressers, especially post COVID, right? With all the time that we're losing having to clean and sanitize and one client at a time. I mean, this would normally take you an hour and a half to 2 hours to do a root touch up with ordinary color. With Megix 10, 45 minutes in and out. These are some more pictures. So this client is mine. I used Megix color on her, Lift 9 on the ends to get this vibrant color. Just some background info. She's naturally a level 2 Armenian dark coarse hair, and I got that brightness with 32 volume. This is another beautiful example. Roots covered, beautiful, vibrant red. This last photo, also my client, she was done in an hour. So we essentially did a root and a demi on the ends, doing a reverse balayage technique and a chop, and she was done. So it's possible to use this on every single one of your clients. You're not limited to only gray coverage or only male clients. As you can see, this is for everybody. And it will save you time and it will make you more money, which obviously is what I want. I'm hoping you guys want that too. And your clients will thank you for it. They don't have to wait 6 weeks to come in and see you because you're so overbooked. You can see 50 clients in 1 week. If you're using this color, 10 clients a day, 5 days a week. So, you know, the future of hair color is here. Are you ready to get with the times? This is so different than anything that I have ever seen. And this is, I don't know what happened here, but I apologize. That's supposed to say work smarter, not harder. Somehow it got messed up. But look at the visual. This just gives you an idea of what's possible in traditional ordinary color versus Megix 10 color. Each client is taking you 45 minutes with a blowout. So we are offering a build your own Try Me kit with Megix 10, depending on who your distributor is. And you can obviously reach out to us and we can help you if you don't know who your distributor is. But here's what the kit includes, okay? 6 colors of your choice. So we were going back and forth with, do we decide the colors or do we let people pick? And we ended up letting you guys choose what you want to purchase in this Try Me kit. Because it wouldn't make sense to put a black color in there or a red color if that's not something you're going to use. So out of the 86 shades, you choose which 6 tubes you want. You get 2 Try Me developers. So you can choose 21, 12, 32, fix, your choice. You get the paper color chart, which is incredibly helpful, and then a color service menu and a technical book. So you're not actually getting the big swatch book, but it is a technical manual that covers some of the information that we spoke about today as far as mixing and timing and background tones. And this is at a 40% discount. So obviously contact your distributor if this is something you are interested in. Most distributors have other intro deals as well. If you want something more than 6 tubes, say you've already tried it and you love it and you want to buy into your salon, these options are available for you. What happens is we also have some promotional tools to help you in marketing your new color line if you choose to bring it on. These 3 on the left are like window clings, so you can put them on your mirrors, you can put them on your salon windows. People who are walking by, it attracts a lot of attention when it says cover your gray and on your way as little as 30 minutes. Clients are like, what? Please tell me more. And it gives you an opportunity to then introduce this revolutionary color that you're using and why it's so different. And clients get super, super excited for something new and something that works. We also have some easels, like tabletop easels, so you can put them on your countertops, you can put them on your shelves. This is just support material for you to help open up the dialogue and introduce this concept to your clients. On the website, there's also a salon locator as well as some videos. So excuse me, I've made a couple of videos to help in understanding the color swatch book and how to formulate and how to mix. There's some videos on there from stylists and their testimonials. So we want to do everything we can to support on your end should you choose to bring this color line in. And I always say I am here, text message, email, to help with any kind of troubleshooting, with any kind of formulation, because I understand that sometimes making the leap into a new color line can be a little scary. And I want you to know that I will help in any way that I can, but to be mindful that even though this is a color line that processes in 10 minutes, it is a color line, just like any other color line. So the laws of color do not change because this process is in 10 minutes, okay? So neutralizing, enhancing how the chemistry of hair color works, it's the same across the board. Hair color is hair color. What makes Megix different is that it processes in 10 minutes, and there's unique CareVeg 18 and full spectrum color technology for you. But I'm here to say don't stress. The laws of color are the laws of color. They do not change. But I will help in any way that I can. So that concludes most of the deck, really. I'd like to open it up to any more questions, if we have any questions. If I missed anything, Maurizio, if you want to throw anything in there.
Yeah, you were perfect.
Oh, well, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
It started off a little rough, but I think we're
just
good.
The first question is, how do we found a distributor? So just email us to info@mowan.it and we will forward to your area distributor. Then we have, okay, so first question is, does the timing of the color processing begin after application is finished, or once you begin applying color?
Great question. So essentially, once you mix your color, you apply the color wherever you want to start. Typically, when gray hair, you want to start in the front or where it's most grayest. And then once you finish applying, you set your timer for 10 minutes. So you don't have to rush and get the color on in 4 minutes. Once you finish your application, you set your timer for 10 minutes.
Okay. So, okay, then is a question, can we get a copy of this mixing formula? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, of course, yes.
I believe what we will do is once we're done, we've recorded this session. So we will email you a link to be able to revisit this. And I will have them put my information on there, my email and Instagram as well, if you have any questions after that. But yes.
Okay, would you recommend recalibrating your eyes for Megix 10 using the 0.0 series on the swatch chart? I found that all color charts have a different weighting of the brand used.
That is a really, really, really great point. Okay, so I don't know if I would call it recalibrating your eyes, but yes, familiarize with yourself with the level system. And my biggest recommendation is this: if you are using another color line and you want to now switch over and change your color formulas for your clients to Megix, I say this loudly: a level 6 is not a level 6 across the board. Okay, there's nothing that technically calibrates that this should be a level 6. So sometimes people will say, well, Megix seems darker than what I was using. And then that same day I'll get a question, well, it's lighter than what I'm used to. And the best advice that I can give is put them side by side and see. Sometimes there's up to a 2-level difference. Like our 6 can be similar to your 4. So absolutely compare them side by side, the background tones and the levels, to make sure that you formulate accordingly, because you're right, every manufacturer has a little bit of a different calibration, I guess I would say. I don't know what the right word for that is. But to get the best results, compare them side by side. Put your 6 next to my 6 and make sure tonal, like level wise, depth wise, they're the same. If not, move up or down a level.
Yes, okay. Another question is, when using the color enhancers, in your formula, it is still in equal parts?
Okay, so there's two things I'm getting from that, so I'm going to address both. When you're saying, is it still in equal parts? If you're referring to equal parts, say 5 natural and blue, no, it's not equal parts. So what the color enhancers, although they don't have a level attached to them, you got to use your thinking brain and think, okay, the blue, if you were to put that as a level, when you look at the blue, it looks like it would be a level 3, maybe 4. So if you're going to mix blue enhancer in, for example, a level 8, how much blue could you really add? Would you want to do half and half? And I'm going to assume the answer is no. So I wouldn't mix equal parts of enhancer and color formula, if that was the question. If the question was, do you mix equal parts of developer? The answer is yes. So say I use 10 grams of a 5 natural, and I use 10 grams of the red enhancer. That makes it a 20-gram formula. Then I would mix 20 grams of developer if I'm doing a permanent or a long-lasting demi or a gray coverage. So in that instance, yes, you would use equal parts. And if that wasn't the question, then ask again, because I want to make sure I get it answered.
Another question, how do you formulate for glaze?
For a glaze, so you could formulate as a tone-on-tone demi. So let me take it back to 1 second. Okay, so you can formulate as with fix, which is the 6 volume, 1 part color, 1.5 parts developer. And this is going to give you a tone-on-tone demi-permanent. It will not deposit very deep into the hair, so this is more of a glaze. If you don't want to do that, you can do 1-to-1 with the 12 volume. 12 volume will give you slightly more deposit. So either one of those two would work.
Another question is, what if you were putting color between your foils and you wanted to put your foils onto the dryer? It's going to affect the color?
Okay, so personally, as a stylist, I wouldn't even recommend putting the bleach under the dryer because, again, when you put something under a dryer heat, it makes it very, very unstable. In all honesty, is it really going to affect it? I'm going to say probably not, but it's a risk that you're taking. So to your discretion, we don't recommend using heat with the color. Have stylists done it? Yeah. So it's just, as a manufacturer, we say don't put it under the color or under the dryer, but if you're going to, then you're going to. I just stress the fact that it creates instability in the chemicals when there's additional heat involved.
Another question is, could I use the enhancers as a formula addition without additional developer?
No. So if you're going to use the enhancers in your formula, then you have to account for developer for that, because the enhancers are oxidative color, which means it comes out of the tube white and creamy, just like every other color. So if you add it into your formula, if you add 5 additional grams to it, then you have to add additional developer for it.
Okay, so you can use this line as permanent, semi, demi, and toning.
Yeah, so you can use it as permanent, a demi-permanent, a tone-on-tone, and a toner.
Yes, so basically it is all in one line.
Yes, yes, it is all in. It's just the only thing is you can't use it as an acidic demi-permanent.
Okay. Another question is, what does it smell like and how does it affect skin? So I suppose they mean because it's an ammonia color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's ammoniated. So what happens is the ammonia typically with any color really dissipates within the first couple of minutes. So when you first mix it, you will smell the ammonia. It's not strong. It's not pungent. It doesn't make your eyes water unless you're sensitive to it. But at the end of the day, it is ammoniated. and they do, it is formulated with PPD. So just be mindful if you have a client who is allergic or has a sensitivity to ammonia, patch test, or just avoid having that kind of reaction with the PPD. I haven't had anybody have a reaction to it, and I've been using it for 2.5 years. But I always stress ammoniated, yes. PPD, yes.
Okay. Another question: would you lighten up the formula as a glaze? I understand about changing developer, but would you lighten the color?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, because you have to think the ends are more porous, and porous hair likes to uptake color. So sometimes I'll use up to 3 or 4 level difference. So for example, if I'm doing a brunette with a level 5 on her roots, I will sometimes use like a level 8 gold to refresh the ends, just to make it more vibrant and more rich. Or if I'm doing a red level 6 on the roots, I will refresh with a level 7. We're taking account the porosity and the texture of the hair.
Okay, another question is safe for pregnant customers?
Ooh, so here's how I take that. I always tell my clients to ask your doctor, because
Yes.
I don't want any kind of responsibility. Have I used it on pregnant people? Yes, I have. As soon as they give me the okay, or if the doctor gives me the okay. So I always redirect, ask your doctor. I'm not your doctor.
If I want an alternative to an acidic deposit color for glazing, can I use the pure shades?
Can you repeat that?
Okay, so if they want an alternative to the acidic deposit only color for glazing, can they use the pure shades?
Yes. So Pure Shades is not acidic or alkaline. Pure Shades is a semi-permanent line. So Pure Shades is almost like a direct dye. You don't need developer for it. So the difference between Pure Shades and an acidic demi, in my honest opinion, they last about the same, because an acidic demi does not last much longer than a direct dye does. And what's unique about Pure Shades is it's not only the vibrant, like, rainbow colors, we have different blondes and different browns. So in that particular situation, if you don't want to use an alkaline or permanent cream color, then yes, Pure Shades is an option for you to create a tonality shift that will last just about the same as a true acidic demi, and probably more healthier for the hair because you're not adding additional developer.
Okay, another question is, I use Capellini infrared color processor. Would that be okay?
The infrared processor. So I don't have personal experience with that, so that's really difficult for me to answer. It's still creating heat, I believe. So I would say you don't need the heat. And again, I always turn it back to why are you wanting to use the heat? What is the desired result you're trying to achieve by adding the heat, whether it's infrared or dryer? And if it's to speed up the process, that's not necessary. Because the process is in 10 minutes, if you're using it to give a bump to your foils and you're only putting the client under there for a couple of minutes, I'm going to say it probably won't be too terrible. But I mean, if you're leaving them under there the whole 20-30 minutes of your bleach to come up, I would say don't do it. But if you're just using it to bump, maybe. I don't use it, so it's so hard for me to answer that question honestly.
Okay, so no more question. Just one. They are asking for your. They're asking for your Instagram account.
Okay. My Instagram is this is Araz with underscores. So this underscore is underscore Araz. I will ask and make sure that that information is in a follow-up email with the link to watch this video. I don't know if there is a chat box that I can type it. Is there a chat box
Yes.
that everybody can see?
Yes, I think so.
Let me see if I can find it.
Yes, I can do for you, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, last question is, thank you for this teaching. It has been really helpful. Will you be teaching other classes for advanced techniques?
Yeah, that's the plan. That is absolutely the plan. So we're trying to, you know, with COVID and doing everything online, we are trying to navigate the best way to do that, to offer the best education and the most information in the easiest way possible. Obviously, at the beginning of this Zoom, we had some technical difficulties. So we are definitely planning and brainstorming on ways to deliver education this way, because it's very new to us. Typically, we do in-person classes and shows. So we are trying to get with the times, and I do believe that there will be more advanced classes coming. There will be more videos coming with formulas and techniques. So there's definitely a lot in the pipe. So please make sure that you do follow us on our social media accounts, on the website. There's lots of resources and videos and a couple of ebooks for you. We're just trying to give you guys as much help in the digital world as we can. But like I said, we're navigating through this the best that we can. But yeah, that's the point. That's the goal, to do some more advanced techniques. Yep. So Moan International on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. These are the websites. And I believe Maurizio said he posted my Instagram on there. So
Yeah,
feel free to reach out to me. Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions?
It is not so. They wrote 90% of my clients are highlights with great cover. So maybe they are asking how to manage this.
Okay, so that's a lot of my clients as well. I have most of my clients are just gray coverage, and then I have the highlight and gray coverage clients. And so typically the way I do it, and it's 100% depending on what you choose to do, but here's what I have found that works for me. Some of the other educators do it differently, other hairdressers do it differently. But I will typically place all my foils. So I'll do my foiling pattern with 12 volume or 21 volume, and I let it process. And typically when it's almost ready, when I know there's about another 15 or 20 minutes left, I will go in and put in the root color, time it for 10 minutes, check my foils, and then wash everything. Now, because of Megix, now I also do a secondary way, and that is for the clients who have long, thick hair. And you know what I'm talking about, Chewbacca, like lots and lots and lots of hair, and I don't want to mess the foils. I will actually do the root color application first, process it for 10 minutes, wash them, shampoo them, power dry them, and then go in and put in my foils. And surprisingly, it takes the same amount of time to do that separately and doing it together. So when you're dealing with clients, or if you're doing a full head of highlights and you don't want to mess with the foils, just you can color first and then go in with your highlights secondary. So it's really up to your discretion. And I take it back to, again, it's not progressive. So if you need to leave it on for 20 or 30 minutes, it's not going to get black. It's not going to get way darker to where it looks 5 levels darker. Can it slightly stain a little bit more? Sure. It's not going to be 3 or 4 levels difference though. So just, don't be afraid to leave it on for longer than 10 minutes because of what you've been told by old technology.
Another question is how to approach with the long, thick hair.
Okay, so how to approach with long, thick hair? Great question. So if you're doing a full color application, meaning roots to ends all over, and it's going to take you longer than 20 minutes to do the application, stylist to stylist, I would say mix a new bowl of color. Because What happens is once you realize and you start using Megix, you'll see as soon as you start mixing the color, this is actually with any color, as soon as the developer and the dyes mix together, the oxidation begins happening. So remember when I was talking about earlier, the coupling of the dyes, so the dyes couple together and get bigger. That happens even in the bowl. So after about 20 to 25 minutes, if you still have half of the hair left to apply, mix a fresh bowl of lightener. Because what can happen is those dye molecules couple and they get too big and they won't even deposit into the hair, they will just stain, which means it'll look colored, and then after a couple of washes, it won't last as long. So in dealing with long, thick hair, you may have to remix a fresh bowl of color to make sure that you get the best deposit, and that's just good practice.
Okay, another question. What is the stopping time on processing?
Well, it's a 10-minute process. So as far as the lift and deposit is happening in the first 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes is up, what happens is the hair has now taken as much color as it can handle, and the rest of the color is just sitting on the cuticle layers. So after 10 minutes, it's just laying on top. And if the cuticle is highly porous, it can stain it a little bit, but after 10 minutes, the lift and deposit is pretty much done with the traditional color. With the high lift, it's after 20 minutes.
Okay, another question. Are you basing your highlights timing using Lift 9 lightener?
Yes, I am, because I use Lift 9. To me, it's a great combination using Lift 9 and Megix 10, because Lift 9 works faster, but it's also gentle. So you're not compromising the integrity of the hair with a fast bleach that's aggressive. You're still getting that great lift in a quicker time that is still gentle on the hair. So yeah, I use them together all the time. I know a lot of people who use them combined, and they're doing highlights and color hour 15 minutes max. So yeah, I don't use more than 21 volume with the Lift 9. That is a personal choice of mine. I feel like it works fast. I don't need to add additional speed to it. But yes, I will use that time and time again. It's like peanut butter and jelly. They just work together.
No more question.
No more questions.
No.
Okay.
Oh,
Nope.
maybe one.
Oh.
Maybe one more. Can you just use Lift 9 to eliminate hair color like a bleach wash?
Yes. So Lift 9 is a bleach. It is a lightener. It is a bleach, whatever you want to call it. It is a powdered bleach that is blue-based. It's got some pigment dissolvance technology in it. It's got bamboo carbon extract in it. So the way Lift 9 works is just the same as bleach, because it will remove. There's just some unique properties to it. And when I tested it, for example, there's a pigment in there, or an ingredient, I'm not a chemist, but something like aquamarine something or other. And it truly does help in the lightening process to lift a lot cooler than traditional bleach does. And it works so fast, but it's so gentle on the hair. It's weird, but it's phenomenal. So I love it. But yes, bleach wash with it. Use it just like you would any other bleach. But yeah, I believe that if that is all the questions,
yes.
I want to personally say thank you guys. Again, just acknowledging that we had a rocky start due to technical difficulties. My apologies for that. But for those of you who have hung around for this and paid attention, I appreciate your time. I'm excited for those of you who are wanting to try Megix. Super excited for you, your clients, and I'm here to help in any way that I can. So I thank you for your time.
Okay, Aras, before we say goodbye, we have another question.
Okay, good.
What is the underlying color for this line? Blue base or green?
Maurizio, I believe it depends on the color. Correct. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a blue base or a green base. You're either going to have a brown base or a cooler ashier base. So depending on the color family, it's going to be a little bit more on the brown or a little bit more on the ash side. I believe that's correct. You've spoken to the chemists about that.
Yeah, no, but you basically you can always refer to the color circle, no, to see how is based the color. Then is another question. One last color regarding double process.
Oh, here we
go. Okay.
Oh.
So one last color regarding double process. It is recommended to use 00 for a higher lift in the bleach on scalp.
Okay, so I think what you're asking is, would you use the 0.00 to bleach the hair on the scalp instead of using the powder bleach? And you can, depending on how much lift you are wanting to achieve. So here's the deal. The 0.00 is basically straight alkalinity. It's straight ammonia with no tonality to it. So with the 40 or double 40, you're going to get 3 to 4 levels of lift. Depends on how light you're trying to go. If you're trying to get 6, 7, 8 levels of lift, no, it's not going to get you that. But if you have somebody who you just need to lift 2 or 3 levels, it'll get you that. It's just going to create some undertone. So it's going to lift whatever the undertone is, raw undertone.
So the lift 9 can be used also on scalp. Yes.
It can be used on scalp. That's where your mixing ratio is going to play a part. So when you're using lift 9 on the scalp, you want to mix a okay, so when you're bleaching hair, you guys, the power is in the powder, not necessarily the developer. So when you're creating an on-scalp application, I wouldn't recommend doing more than 21 volume, 32 if their hair is really, really coarse.
So let's say, sorry, that here in Europe, for example, the maximum that can we use on scalp with bleaching powder is 3%, so 12 volumes.
Yeah, so in the States, they do use, some people use 30 volume on scalp. You can get what you need with 12 or 21 volume.
Yes.
And then also mixing more developer to bleach. So maybe 1 part of bleach to 2 parts developer, or maybe even 3 parts developer, so that it's not as aggressive, because the power is in the powder. But typically 12 and 21 volume, you're fine. Some people will use 32. That's just, I wouldn't, but I don't think it's recommended.
Yes.
And I didn't know that in Italy you can only use 12 volume on scalp with bleach.
Yeah, this is the law, but also here, then stylists, they can do.
That's everywhere. Hairdressers do whatever they.
Yes. What is very important is also that they can use the Megix 1-up on scalp.
True.
Before applying the bleach or the high old color to protect the scalp, especially the sensitive skins.
Yeah, the 1-up has that polyamine sugars and the niacin to help with the scalp sensitivity. It also has the CareVeg 18 built into it to help with maintaining the integrity of the hair. It's pretty awesome. 1 part developer to 3. I would do 3 parts, 12 volume, depending on the level. 21 if they're very, very dark and you're trying to get them very, very light. But you guys also be mindful, you can always reapply fresh lightener. So people think I'm crazy, but I don't use usually more than 12 volume for any kind of lightening process. I'm very, very cautious. And if I'm not getting the lift that I want, I just go in and reapply directly on top. So if I'm doing an on scalp application, I won't wash it. I just reapply directly on top with fresh lightener. If I'm doing long foils, I'll just reapply fresh lightener with 12 volume. Yes, it takes longer, but for me, maintaining the integrity is just as important as the timing. So, Sally, you said 20 minutes max. The lift 9 can work up to 50 minutes. So if you're using the 12 volume, you can leave it on until you get the desired result.
Yes, they can check.
Just check it.
Okay, so it looks no more questions.
We sure? Going once? Going twice. Okay. Very cool. Well, I'm here for you guys on Instagram. If you guys have any questions, I will put my info in a follow-up email. And again, I appreciate you guys for your time. And we will keep you updated if we create any new video, any new Zooms with new content. We have your email, so we will send you guys a little update.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay.
Oopsie. All right, and I think that's it. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yes, thank you so much to everyone. Apologize again for the delay, and see you soon.
Stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, guys. Bye.
Goodbye.